Welcome to Ranch Girls on the Road. Well, I was one of those children that was just born horsey, even though my family weren't into horses at all. So I was involved with horses I had my first riding lessons when I was 4 years old.
Wow.
And then it used to take me 2 hours to walk home from primary school because I'd be patting all the horses on the way home. And when I was 9, my mother bought me a 9-month-old colt as my first horse. So that was a huge learning curve. I broke him in when I was 12 years old, broke him in to ride, and he was just amazing. And I've sort of been dealing with horses ever since. I'd never had any more formal training until I was an adult, and I think that probably helped me in a lot of ways because I was very much reliant on my relationship with the horses themselves to find ways of getting them to do what I needed or wanted them to do. So I didn't have any of that baggage along with me. You know, it was very much just, this is what we need to do. How am I going to get there? And just working that out with each individual horse. Because what I did with one horse, I soon found was often not the case with another one. That first horse that I had, my 9-month-old colt, I had him, from when he was 9 months old till when he died in his 30s. So he taught me to ride. He taught my son to ride. You know, our relationship was longer than I've had with everybody except my parents, really. He was around forever. So, and he had huge personality. He was one of those that would open gates and doors and jump out of paddocks and chase people, and he was naughty and obnoxious. I hadn't really met any other horses that were like him until I met a couple of Kaimanawa horses. Yeah, these two horses were the closest I'd come across that to his personality. And the people were campaigning to try and stop all these horses from being shot. I put my name down to take 2, thinking that I would take them on, I'd tame them, I'd find them great homes, and they could go on and, be great children's ponies. Because they were too small for me. They were all just ponies, and so that was my plan. I ended up with 2 2-year-old colts and a mature stallion, and I've still got the 2 2-year-old colts. They never went anywhere. Yeah, well, initially we were a very small team. So to begin with, I was the breed registrar, and I was doing the newsletter, and I was, doing all sorts of PR work and all that sort of thing. It's basically preserving the wild herd. They're a group that's there for rehoming the horses that are mustered by the government. So there's lots of home checking and checking references for people. So each property is physically visited and checked, and we speak to the people and let them know what they're in for with taking a wild horse direct from the range, because they don't go anywhere else unless people have arranged for them to go to someone like me who handles them first before they go to them. But for the majority of people, they are taking them from the time they're mustered. It's changed a lot from what they used to be when they first started mustering. And 1993 was the first muster they did, and it was just sort of a wee trial just to see how they would get on if they were to try bringing horses in. So they built some yards, and they got people on horseback and people on motorbikes, and they tried to get around about 100 horses and bring them all in at once, and it was an absolute disaster. There is no way ridden horses could outrun these wild horses, and they'd outrun the motorbikes too. So they just ended up with horses going in all directions. So then they decided that they'd use helicopters instead, and the helicopters are far more efficient, but they work really slowly. So the whole operation is all very much focused on horse welfare. So they're not chasing the horses with the helicopters. They're very smart about how they operate, and they're literally like sheepdogs, just very quietly maneuvering them as slowly as they can. And there's horses stopping to chat, and others having a play, and mutual grooming, and having a roll, and they're snatching feed as they come through. So it's not like the videos you see of the horses being mustered in America, where there's horses just galloping flat out and breaking legs. And this is all done very quietly. There's a very small team of people in the yards who work on drafting the horses. There's 1 or 2 vets in attendance, and they are in charge of the whole muster. So they draft through and decide which horses are fit for rehoming and which ones aren't. The percentage of horses that are vetted out now is really low, really low. Out of 321 horses this year, there was 8 vetted out. It's a really, really good percentage now. So their condition has improved a lot, and also the vets have also improved the way they do things too, and the way they view the horses. People pay $250 for a horse, and that covers the horse's registration, the first worming, that covers the transport to our satellite yards. Don't listen to other people. Listen to your horse.
Nice answer. That's fine.
The same advice I give everybody. Don't listen to me or anyone else. Listen to what the horse is telling you. To me, it just entirely depends on the horse. Yeah. Some need a lot of education and confidence building and all that sort of thing before they're ready to accept a rider. Others, they're quite happy for you to get on, and away you go. Find something that suits you, that sits well with you and your philosophies, and what makes you feel good and what you understand. Find somebody that can help you, and who is genuinely helping, rather than just either trying to sell you something, or is just trying to promote themselves, which there seems to be a lot going on these days. Yeah. Go at the horse's pace. Yeah. And that's a really foreign concept for so many people. You can tell them that, but then they'll see somebody else who, that person got a halter on their horse in 4 days, and look, they're riding it in a week. And, it's been 3 months and I can't even touch mine. And it's like, they're 2 different horses, 2 different people. They are pure horse. They are an absolute clean slate. They don't need people to survive. They are not reliant on us at all. They're really intelligent. They're they're just amazing, you know, and for them to have gone through everything they have in the muster process, no matter how focused on welfare you are and how much you try to keep things as nice for them as possible, there is still the fact that they are being ripped away from their home, from their families. You know, they have lifelong bonds that are being ripped apart. It's their first experience of confinement. They've never been in a yard. They have no comprehension of confinement. These horses don't even have predators. There's nothing out here to bother them. So they're not even used to predator stress. So any stress to these horses is just such a foreign concept. Some are really quick. You know, I guess it's like people when you put them in a situation where a natural disaster or something like that. You know, there'll be some who go, right, okay, and they just get on with things and try and find the quickest way to adapt. Others are just absolutely traumatized and catatonic and don't know what to do with themselves and are very depressed and very reactive, and you know, it's absolutely blowing their minds. No, they all come round in the end, but it's really crucial that people give them the time to do that. Otherwise, they do resort to things like fear aggression and things like that, you know. And if you put too much pressure on them, and these are horses that, as I say, aren't used to stress, so they're not used to being under pressure, and it's really, really easy to push them beyond what they can cope with. There's often they'll let you do a lot of things to them. They'll sit there and go, oh yeah, okay, and they'll kind of accept it, even though they're still not actually good with it. And if you keep pushing that, then at some point they're just going to explode and go, well, I can't cope. So it's being able to recognize when they get to that point and going, how amazing is this horse? It's letting me do this when it's really not into it. Respecting that and backing off rather than trying to push for more. And that's where people run into problems with them. You know, I can have wild horses in the yards here. I can lead my thoroughbred and standard bred and little crossbred straight past them. They don't even look. I lead a Kaimanawa past and everybody in the yards, all of a sudden, you're one of us. And they just recognise each other. It doesn't matter how many years they've been out of the wild, a Kaimanawa knows a Kaimanawa. Yeah, it was at a natural horsemanship clinic, actually, where there was about 40 horses on the clinic, and they turned them all out into a huge, big 20-acre paddock at lunchtime. And within minutes, all these Kaimanawas who didn't know each other had all congregated together. All the other horses were just left all milling around, completely lost. And this lot had all formed their own little herd and they were doing their thing. Oh, so many people for so many different reasons. Yeah. One of my biggest influences was somebody who owned 100 horses but wasn't even a horse person. He got his first horses because he had a bet with his father that he could build a stagecoach like the one on Bonanza. And somehow ended up with all these horses. I learned so much from him about what not to do. And some really good ways of doing things too, because he didn't know any different either. So he had to come up with his own ways of doing things too. There's him. I mean, there's all our great event riders and people like that have really inspired me. You know, people like Mark Todd and Blythe Tate. And I mean, Blythe Tate riding a dressage test is beautiful. All sorts of people, Nuno Oliveira, Ray Hunt, you know, just so many different people for different reasons and in different ways. But I do love working with Kaimanawas. for 10 years, I just did behavioural work with horses,
Mhm.
travelling between Warkworth and Waikato. But I got a little bit tired of just working with lots and lots of problems, and quite often, it's usually the case of it's not the horse that's the problem, it's
Always the people.
the people, and too many people just want a quick fix, and that's not how I work. And so, yeah, if you can't fix the people, they're going to end up having the same problems. So for me, it's much easier I'm much happier just working with Kaimana was out of the musters.
I believe you.